Oh, I think I might have it. Oh! Yes, dude. Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the very start of the 14.7 balance changes. They've done a lot of nerfs and buffs to existing ships in the game. We're going to start out with the Utrecht and the entire Dutch light cruiser line. You know, it's been a pretty good update when it takes me this long to get to the balance changes. We've had a really good time so far in 14.7. But Utrecht, alongside the rest of these Dutch light cruisers, Coehoorn, Jaarsveld, as well as Vrijheid, which is the tier 8 premium, have been nerfed, buffed, kind of. They've actually had a nerf to their reload on their Airstrike by like 33% nerf. Now it is a 60-second reload time on Utrecht, and that's up from 45 seconds is what it used to be. You were spamming so many more planes. Now, did I notice the difference? I'm not so sure. Honestly, I haven't played Utrecht much since it was released. In fact, I realized while trying to get this video, I didn't even have Utrecht on my main account yet. I had to use some free XP to get to the tier 10 to play it for you guys today. So it's not exactly fresh in my mind how many airstrikes we could spam out. But I will say, I didn't really notice the downside of this reload. We still got absolutely ridiculous damage out of these airstrikes. Of course, I'm running Conrad in our second game. I will be getting every single Conrad buff on this ship as well, absolutely maximizing those airstrikes. But this ship can still perform quite well under pressure. Getting yourself into a pretty central area of the map with this 14-kilometer airstrike range is kind of ridiculous. And while that reload has been nerfed with a full build for these airstrikes before any of those Conrad buffs, we're getting around a 40-second reload on the airstrikes. It's like a Vermont reload to get these airstrikes out, which is still incredibly quick, especially when we compare it to the Guden or even like Prince, for example. That thing takes forever to reload its strikes. When you're fighting against an Utrecht, I think it's still going to feel like it's spamming out an absurd amount of strikes at you. Here, though, at least the box is small, so there is penalty for missing. You do have to lead quite well here with these airstrikes. But they also buffed the airstrikes, too, alongside this nerf to its reload. So they've given them more damage, up from 5,800 alpha to 6,900 alpha. Very nice. But it means you do so much more damage when you pen. I really did notice that too. Felt like some of these bomb salvos were kind of ridiculous, assuming you penned their deck armor. That was the key. Used to have 34 millimeters of pen, now we have 37 millimeters of pen. The key thresholds here are going to be 32 and 38 millimeters. I don't know of very many ships that actually have between 34 and 37 millimeter deck armors. I think it's Riga deck armor is 35, somewhere in there. So there's very few ships that this is actually going to matter against, but they did buff your pen a little bit, as well as the fire chance on these bombs from 33% to 39%. Small change there, but you should be getting a few more consistent fires if you're landing these bombs. Although if you're landing the bombs anyway, 33% should be more than enough to guarantee a lot of fires. Alongside Utrecht's frankly ridiculous amount of main gun firepower, 17-kilometer range on what is DD caliber guns with 32 mil pen on the HE. It's a lot. This entire line is just kind of a lot. Now, you still can get pushed with this ship, no torpedoes, so here we're getting pinched on either side by a Zorky as well as Dyson. So we're probably going to go down here, but we've still done a great job of holding the middle of the map here. Don't forget, Utrecht also has some pretty strong AP, so we're going to swap over to that. Not the best pen, but the alpha damage is pretty solid there. It's an interesting idea that Wargaming's had here to try and nerf down the spamminess of the airstrikes while still keeping some of the power. I guess that would be my impression of these changes, given that the alpha damage and the fire chance has gone up, but a massive reduction in that reload. It's still going to feel pretty spammy, though. I really believe it's going to feel quite spammy to deal with this still, especially because of that 14-kilometer range with this cooldown, too. So it's not like you can really hide away from these strikes. Notice this Des Moines is on a very common radar island. So am I. This is like the most common light cruiser, radar cruiser locations on this map when you spawn at the sea cap here. And our range is still enough to actually find him behind that island. It's not a very fun ship to fight, all right? I don't think Utrecht is very enjoyable to be on the receiving end of. I know, hot take there, but I think there's some things Wargaming could have done to help that out, and one of those would be to reduce the range a little bit more. Let me know if you want to see the Vrijheid changes. The Coehoorn and Jaarsveld are pretty much identical percentage-wise, like a 33% nerf to their DPM with the same buff to their alpha damage. Vrijheid, though, only got like a 25-26% nerf to its DPM and a little bit less buff to its alpha damage. That one, though, remember, is the one that has like 9-kilometer airstrike range only, and it's got a little bit quicker reload to compensate for that one. That one's harder to play at tier 8, of course, and I wish this line was a little bit more like that, especially considering how powerful these main guns are too. I don't feel like it needed such a massive airstrike buff to give it so much range and so much DPM as well. I suppose it's difficult to hit them. It did take me quite a few games to get used to this ship again. Like I said, I hadn't played it at all since it was launched into the game. So I was a little rusty with these airstrikes. So leading 13 kilometers or 13-second lead time, 13.5-second lead time here with such a small drop window, it took a little bit. But that Des Moines is going dark. He is seemingly reversing. And with such a small drop pattern, our plane's not taking any AA damage because he's behind an island, so his AA is not firing at him. That's 10 hits and a double fire. That was like 12,000 damage and a double fire into that Des Moines, who was dark. That's a cruiser. That's not even a battleship. We haven't even met the ultimate in like a Republic or Thunderer, Conqueror, things like that. That's where the alpha damage would be absolutely ridiculous. So overall, it's probably a nerf. 33% does sound like a lot, but it still feels like we're spamming out a lot of these airstrikes. I'm not a huge fan of the Dutch lines in this game overall. As you probably know, I'm not a big airstrike or airplane enjoyer in this video game. Just doesn't feel very fair to fight against a lot of this stuff. Utrecht as well, having such powerful main guns alongside. I mean, you compare the shell flight times to things like Colbert, which Colbert has an insane amount of higher damage, but the shell velocity here makes it incredibly easy to use these guns, even at these longer ranges. Getting some of those Conrad buffs already. We're up to, what, 23 bomb hits, so we're about halfway there. Not sure on the Witherer yet, but as you know, Conrad is the special Dutch commander, where every 50,000 damage we get, we're going to get a 2% buff to our alpha damage on our main guns, as well as our airstrikes. So buffing our alpha damage with this 14.7 balance patch, its percentage changes, remember? So going from 6,900, adding 246% to that, you can get 3 of those stacks when you get 150,000 damage. It adds up. It certainly does add up to quite a lot of alpha damage on these bombs. And we could cheekily farm around this island too, not too bad. Ohio entering our range. This Schlieffen appears to be taking a lot of focus fire from our team. So I don't want to waste, quote unquote waste an airstrike on that Schlieffen. So we'll go after the Ohio instead. Most of them, are about half of our squad actually goes down, but that doesn't matter. A couple bomb hits is more than enough to get a fire. I do want to point out, though, that Utrecht has horrible, horrible propulsion, okay? So I'm running the full airstrike build here because that's what was changed. I wanted to see what the build was like. But it might be worth running propulsion mod on this ship, given that you're oftentimes maneuvering around islands, and it can be a little bit awkward to get caught out by an Ohio, maybe, if you're flat broadside. Having prop mod is pretty nice for situations like that. Also, if you have to open water, yeah, we do have an engine boost, but it's not always up, and prop mod stacks with that engine boost, so you're even more maneuverable, easier to dodge some of that incoming fire. Oh no, is that a double fire on this poor Ohio who just damage controlled our single fire? Yeah, it's still a lot of DPM on these strikes. You're still going to be proccing damage controls on the enemy battleships and then having another strike ready to go right as their immunity time comes up. It's still going to feel pretty rough to fight as this Ohio. And again, we get caught here. No engine boost, no prop mod, and we're okay because like cruiser things, right? If we're flat broadside, sometimes you do only just eat over pens. Although I think the Los Andes got us in the last one at pretty close range. That's pretty angled to him though, so that's probably why. If I'd been more broadside... Utrecht's a small ship, man. It's very narrow, so it is a legitimate strategy to go for. Poor Ohio has grounded, and this is where you're going to see the difference in 37 and 38 millimeters of pen. we're going to get a lot of hits on this guy, and 9 of them shatter. We still get a fire, though, which is pretty nice. But that's because we hit the Ohio center mass. If we had hit him in the stern or the bow sections, we would have done a lot more damage because we would have penned those sections. But Ohio, having that 38mm deck armor is just enough. It's a very good thing that they did not buff this up to 38. It's very important that number on the Airstrike pen is staying below 38mm. It's still going to be brutal for anyone with lower than 37mm of deck armor. But in these cases... Oh, okay, we still do 9k. Never mind. I guess it's still very, very good. Even if you have enough armor to bounce it or shatter it. Yeah, some of those bombs are going to hit your superstructure. Some of those bombs are going to spread out and hit your stern or your bow. And you're going to eat a lot of damage anyway. Oh, looks like we've already got ourselves a couple of our buffs. This here is 152,000 damage. Sort of about 6% more alpha damage. We've already got our third strike. Notice we haven't used a third strike. We haven't charged one up. This is what I'm talking about with Conrad a lot of the time. That third strike isn't always going to be as good as you think, just because you're oftentimes just using these strikes on cooldown. You're using the DPM of them. And with this nerf to the DPM, I think we'll be seeing that usefulness a little bit less. The key here with the third strike is the ability to charge more up as you're traversing the map as you are going to finish up with the enemy team, like we're about to go do here. And yes, there's the Witherer. So we've activated everything on Conrad here with the Utrecht. And now we've got around a 33-second reload time on these airstrikes. So not nearly as good as we used to on Utrecht with a fully built ship and getting all Conrad buffs. I think it was around a 24-second reload time, somewhere in there, on a fully built Utrecht with the Conrad buffs. Although I don't have a lot of AR right now, so that could factor into things as well. AR, of course, impacting your reload of your guns, your torps, your airstrikes, everything as you get lower on HP. We still got quite a bit of HP. Looking back, maybe I should have eaten these Yoshi torps. I would have survived. Would have been funny to see how much we could get that airstrike reload down. Regardless, though, we have charged up most of them. Napoli with a 40mm deck armor still is going to be able to shatter these airstrikes. I would say this is a nerf to Utrecht, though. I don't know if I've said that clearly enough yet. It definitely is a nerf to Utrecht. You're not going to be getting nearly as many of these strikes out. And while the damage has been buffed, the fire chance has been buffed, the pen has been buffed, the pen especially isn't getting over any new thresholds that really matter, in my opinion. The fire chance was already pretty good, in my opinion. And the alpha damage is noticeable, sure, but having 33% less of these strikes throughout a game is going to be noticeable on your end, especially if you're someone who plays Utrecht a lot for these airstrikes. I think it's a good change, though. Maybe it needs more, to be honest with you. Oh yeah, here's the Conrad buffs, if you're wondering. So I think the most impactful one certainly is Witherer. If you can, try to get yourself that Witherer. These main guns having pretty good fire chance alongside these airstrikes having such high range. It's pretty easy to proc a lot of fires on enemy battleships, farm a lot of damage up that way. And that's how you get the most power out of this ship. I still think this ship is incredibly powerful. I think it's a little bit toxic to fight against. I'm very biased in that I really dislike dealing with airplanes in this video game. And so while the airstrikes are led, there's a 13-second lead time instead of like a 3-second lead time that carriers deal with. Oh yes, that salvo, pretty cathartic, right? But it's plane-on-plane violence. It's not even... What do I have to do? Do I have to play the busted planes to deal with the busted planes? I don't know, man. I wish we didn't have quite so many of these crazy gimmicks in the game. Yes, they have nerfed the Utrecht line here on account of their HE bombs. That is the right way to nerf it, in my opinion. I think it's still a little silly how good these main guns are and their range and their shell velocity. But if you're going to tune Utrecht down a little bit, start with those bombs, please. And they certainly did that. So I'm overall happy that they are looking at these ships already, trying to balance them down a little bit. Whether it's enough, we shall see. But we still got an absolutely ridiculous amount of damage. 80k out of these bombs, plus another 70 from those fires. Way more than we were doing with our main guns. You can still just sit there and spam out strikes and hardly use your guns and still do extremely well. And as for the build that I was running on this one, we went mostly as a full airstrike build. So we're taking this upgrade slot here. We're also focusing some on main guns, of course. Survivability, always very, very important for these light cruisers. Getting more heals, getting more HP to start with, results in a 40.8 second reload time base. AR kicks in, as well as Conrad here, especially with Witherer. Gets a little bit ridiculous. Is it enough? I don't know. Maybe you Utrecht enjoyers, let me know if this is a significant feeling change. Like I said, I hadn't played this ship in a very, very long time, so it still felt like I was spamming out at a ridiculous amount of strikes. In fact, I often had a strike reloaded, and I just forgot to use it because I was so used to trying ships like Prince, or actually Willem recently, the tier 10 Dutch battleship. Much, much longer reload on those strikes. So it's been a while since I've been playing something that can spam out this many. It still feels like a lot to me. I don't know. Airstrikes in this game, man. I don't know. Here's the build that I was running here with the upgrade specifically. If you want to go with more of a hybrid main gun focused build, definitely running propulsion mod can be a really, really good option. It's quite sluggish to run, especially when your engine boost is off cooldown, but also when you're using it, it's only an 8% engine boost. So getting some extra propulsion here to dodge shells is very useful. I would still probably run Airstrike mod because if I'm playing a light cruiser for main guns, I'm probably picking something else. I'm going to try my hand at Colbert or something like that. It's hard, but I'm going to try that a little bit more. If I'm playing Utrecht, for me personally, I'm probably playing it to do the HE Airstrike gimmick, HE Bomb Airstrike gimmick. So that's why I built it that way. Concealment's solid, and 17 kilometers of range on destroyer gun caliber with good flight times. That is kind of nuts. 9.5% fire chance there too, 32 mil pen. This ship's wild, man. This ship is wild. This line is wild. It's very, very strong. And I think even though it's been nerfed, these airstrikes are still absolutely insane. Well worth grinding towards if you want a very powerful light cruiser. If you want to spam some airstrikes over islands on people, this is also a great option to go for. Much spammier than the heavy cruiser line with Guden. Even that with its legendary mod, you're still not getting the reload that we see here on Utrecht planes. So I'd like to see more, but I'm very biased, of course, against these airstrikes. If I had my way, we probably wouldn't even see these kind of airstrikes in the game. And I know that's not realistic for Wargaming to do, but it would just be my wish in my perfect world, right? Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments down below about these Utrecht changes. Look forward to many more videos on some of the balance changes here in 14.7. It's been a great update. There's tons of new content for new players, for returning players, free-to-play players. So it's taken me a while to actually get to the really cool balance changes. I'm always very excited to see Wargaming go through, look at recently released ships as well as old ships, and tweak things to make a more fun meta, bring some old ships up to par. It's really, really good to see them going back and looking at the balance of the game and not just releasing new content and then letting some of the older stuff sit there and wash away kind of thing. And there's certainly plenty more of those balance changes in this 14.7 pass. So we're going to look at that soon. But that's going to do it for today's video on the Utrecht. Thank you very much for watching and have a great rest of your day.